I really want to thank Chris for bringing the Federation flag in all its colors. It's the first time I have seen it like that. Thank you, Chris. But the more you think about courage, is the more your focus falls on the nature of fear. And for a while, I was prepared to dismiss courage as a figment of the imagination of fear. Because we're always saying the greatest thing to fear about fear is fear. You're afraid to feel afraid, and so you won't dare feel afraid. And so if an act defying that fear that evaporates with a single movement forward dissipates fear, then that act of courage dissipates with it. But then I had to contend with this place. And I had to contend with history. And then it began to occur to me that fear has different grades. That there is the fear that is a material fear. The fear of, if I speak out, I'll lose my job. If I don't wear the right clothes, they will not know who I am. If I speak of my love, I will be denied. The material fear. But then, this place that we are in talks about a different fear, and it's a fear that is not material, but spiritual. And I want to ask you to travel with me a few hundred years back, just the other day, that is, and think about this place that you're in, this nice pretty room and lights and so on, and imagine it as the mangrove it was. Right here is just mangrove and bush and swamp. And out in the distance, what you're seeing is some thatched huts. And the native Indians were there. And out closer to the shoreline was a Spaniard, Antonio Cedeno. And he was as frightened as they were. They were scared, because the thing they most were afraid of were horses. They had never seen horses, and the Spanish had brought horses. And Cedeno had got the little letter that says that he could come and claim Trinidad. Columbus had been here about 35 years before. Trinidad was not important in the scheme of things. And he just had a small band of his own band of brothers, and the Indians had their own bands, their own tribes that they called together, because they had seen enough of the Spanish, and they knew that, as they say, they could not live together. And so they were each plotting against each other. And Cedeno's men really wanted to go to the mainland because Trinidad did not look like a place for human habitation. And so the war started, and we've got the famous 1533, the Battle of Cumucurapo, or as we say it today, Mucurapo. And people rose above their fear of the mosquito, of the horses, of the whatever, and they went at each other. And when the Indians saw the horses coming and they had to flee, and the women and children knew, well, that the Spanish were on us, they rose above all the other fears, and they took, which was for them an act of courage. They jumped into the flames. And we have seen that picture repeated over and over, and until today, we are seeing people doing things that make no logic. Because the thing that is driving them to what they consider the acts of courage is a fear of losing something so precious that all the other fears fall away. And we've seen it in later years. We've seen the Africans brought, for all intents and purposes, taken from Africa as if a spaceship were to land here today and grab all of us up and take us to a planet that we've never heard of and seen, and say start to work under force. That is how it would have felt for them coming across the Middle Passage here. And they quelled their fears. They quelled the fear of the whip. They quelled the fear of being killed in pursuit of the singular pursuit of freedom. And they rose above those fears because something so important to the spirit would be denied them if they did not take the chance. And just down the road here, by the lighthouse, where the Indians indented with their little bundles would come off after being washed and sprayed down and so on in Nelson Island and come here to be selected and sorted and sent off to the plantations. They too went through the same experience. And so today, all of us, we sit on a pyramid of courage, not just here, all over the Caribbean, and dare I say all over the New World. There is a pyramid of courage that is our legacy. And if they were to come back, your great-great-great-grandmother and father, those people who, on August 1st, 1834, assembled right across the road there, right here, to listen to the governor stand up on the steps of the Treasury and read out the Proclamation of Independence. If they were somehow to find their way through these doors and they were to look at you and look at me and look at all of us, they would weep. They would say, everything I did was worth it. Look at my children. And so we arrived through other circuitous routes, other fantastic people who took their acts of courage and arrived here and took boats and went around the coast and looked for veins of oil, and John Lee Lum and Randolph Rost and Walter Darwin, and got bitten by all kinds of things and died from yellow fever and so on in a place that was almost impossible to find oil and to exploit it commercially. So that today, in 1962, when we arrived at that moment of independence, we were able to join the world as a sovereign nation, sovereign individuals, and prepare to take our place in the world. And we arrived at that point where mass democracy was meeting mass consumption. And the freedom to be very soon became the freedom to buy. And for 50 years, we have been consuming all the things, all the entire legacy that was produced by people who did not even dare dream of what it might one day produce, but they did it. And we have been temporizing all over the Caribbean. Chris talked about the Federation. We have taken all of those gifts and we have turned inward into the culture of consumption. But there is a message if we were to look at what we see around the world, if we were to look at today's young people, we would recognize the sign that there is a different time that is coming. And if we tarry too long in this phase where, okay, we are glad and we have the right to do what we want, and we want to enjoy the fruits too, what we do by tarrying so long is that we are satiating the physical, the things of the physical senses, the eating, the drinking, the material possessions. At a time of many centuries ago when people had empty bellies, the spirit was strong. Now the spirit is weak and the body is strong. And we live in an age where we face the death of courage because the mass society is based on conventions to manage us, where courage and expression of courage is so unusual and so rare that when it happens and when we see it, we have to denounce it because you're stepping out of line is unusual. And so Wayne Cabral Singh had to be laughed at and ridiculed and not recognized as an act of courage. This is a moment of, in the pursuit of the mass, we are pursuing the lowest common denominator. It is a moment as we look at the technology that has been created. There is a message in the technology, and the message is that we are connecting despite geographical boundaries, despite all the externals of our presence. We are connecting on the level of the basic humanity, but if we do not recognize that the technology would claim us, we have to act to claim the technology. We have to act to recognize wherever we are that we are moving out of the age of consumption, and that the world is asking us for a new basis for organization. The entire global economic collapse, that was the message. And no matter how many bailouts, the age of industrialization followed by the age of consumption has run its course. We have to find a new basis to establish the viability of the individual away from the merely material. And I want to bring that lesson home to Trinidad in the sense that we can never create enough CPEP jobs. We have to focus on the issue of how do we revalue human endeavor so that the products of another form of engagement is enough, the valuing is enough for people to live. And that is a restoration of human output beyond the industrial age. It is the creative output. And that is why our artists have to be considered in that equation. We have to move. We have to consider why we devalue the product of the imagination so much in this place. And I want to give you a very simple theory, which is that people who were brought here only for manual labor, it is the only thing we know how to rate. We were never expected to think, and so that's zero-rated. And so we are starting from zero, and we don't know what price to put on it, and so therefore it's do a little thing here and so on and so forth. We have to begin to reconsider the entire value system, not just in Trinidad, but all over the world. You are seeing the signs are everywhere that age, that economic model for this civilization is over. We are just buying time with bailouts, and we are buying time with all the debt restructuring and so on. But a new age is upon us, and the people who we are going to depend on to describe it and to explain it are our artists, because they are the ones that are in touch with the spirit. And they are the ones whose work we have to look at, and that is why the artist cannot walk away from that responsibility either and make the easy deal and fall away from the cause. And so artists are always going to have it hard because it is a different road. It is the courage. That is the courage that is needed at a time when it is so easy to satisfy the body and leave the soul and the heart and the spirit to die. I don't think we are lost at all. I think it is here. I think it is not just here, it's all over the Caribbean. But I think it would have to start with each of us asking the two most important questions, I think. Who am I? Really, who am I? I'm not just my mother and father's child. I'm not just my friend's friend. I'm not just my children's mother or father. Who am I? What am I about in the world? Life is very simple. You're born, you live, you die. And you get out of the way. And if you were to walk up and down Trinidad, you should know that there are many like you who came and have gone and have left no mark. But you have a chance. And if we could find the confidence in here to answer that question, who am I? what am I about, and proceed to live to that, whatever, whether it's popular, not popular, whatever, but live to that, then it will not matter if our name is remembered. We will have gone satisfied. And it is therefore the single most important act of courage is to find here. Because on that platform, you find peace with yourself and you move forward. If we were to do that 400 years from now, when we come peeping through some place and to meet the children that we can never even imagine what they would be like, we will not find scrambling people, blaming that generation of the 20th to the 21st century who just ate out the place like locusts. They will find people who left them something on which they build. In this relay of life, we left the baton, they picked it up, and they went on. So I ask of you, and I ask of myself, and all of us, to accept the historic responsibility of having been here at this time when the world can find community, when we have the technology to reach out and serve ourselves and the larger space of the planet. Thank you.